Welcome to the seminar, the Great Staff Shortage. On the left there is me, I'm Andy Boyce, I'm Director of Travelology. We're an independent travel technology company based in the UK, about 200 customers around the world, from OTAs to tour operators, retailers, airlines, hoteliers, etc. I've been asked to facilitate today's session, which I'm delighted to do. And joining me today is Simon Jeffries, who's the Head of Product and Commercial at Carrier, who are a luxury high-end tour operator based in the UK. Give us a wave, Simon.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening, good morning, wherever you are.
We also have Dev, who's the Chief Financial Officer at Open Destinations. And we're also joined by Manuel Mascarenhas, who is the Business Development Manager and specifically responsible for the business support services at Open Destinations as well. There are three others on the call from Open Destinations. So Katrina, who's kindly controlling the slides for us. We've got Kevin, who's the CEO of the business, and also Tom with us as well. So welcome to you guys, and they'll be helping us field and answer any questions as we go through the session today. So first slide, please, Katrina. So just a couple of the boring bits, the rules before we start. So we ask if you could just put yourselves on mute if you're not already, just so we don't get any background noise. If you wish to ask a question as we go through, please post up on the chat function that you'll find down at the bottom of the screen. You can either post something direct to individuals, or you can post it to everybody. When we get to the Q&A part of the session, we'll review those questions, and I'll do my best to fire those at the relevant people and hopefully get the answers for you. If we don't have a chance to cover everything today, then the Open Destinations team will follow up with you directly afterwards by email or call, just to make sure that we do cover any questions that you have. We will be recording the session as well, and that will be published and made available to you to review and share with your colleagues as you wish to, if you miss any part of the session. So next slide, please, Katrina. So in terms of the agenda for today, so I'm going to give a quick industry insight, a bit of a view of how things are looking in the industry and our view of what we're seeing from our customers and some of their challenges around the pandemic and how they're thinking about dealing with the future going forwards. Manuel's then going to talk specifically about how Open Destinations build the outsourcing partnerships and the services that are included as part of that as well. And then Simon, as an end user of the product, as it were, is going to give an overview of his experience and Carrier's experience of using the services. And then Dev will finish off the presentations, just going through a couple of case studies from outsourcing partners that Open Destinations work with. And then we'll move into, for the last part of the session, into discussion and Q&A. So again, this is the part where post up your questions and we'll fire those and get the answers for you. So I'm just going to kick off and just give you a bit of a view of the industry insight from where we see things. So I'm going to start off talking about some of the pandemic related issues, and I'm sure that these will resonate with many of you. And I think as an industry, one of the biggest challenges that we've had is the fact that travel businesses had to retain staff with very limited or in some cases no revenue whatsoever. And I think this is fairly unique to the sector. In the UK, we've had what was referred to as the furlough scheme, where the government was effectively paying the salaries for staff so that they could be kept on. And I know that's been replicated throughout the world by different governments. But the travel industry has found this strange situation where that scheme hasn't really been as effective as it has been in other sectors, because in many cases, travel businesses have had to keep staff on to service their customers in terms of making changes, dealing with cancellations, amendments to bookings. And as most of you will also have experienced, that sometimes making those changes is often more time consuming and complex than making the booking in the first place, and particularly when some of the suppliers of the products possibly aren't available. So hoteliers might only be working on with limited staff themselves, so contacting them to make changes, airlines changing the schedules and around the flights as well, become really challenging for the industry. The second key item, I think, has been the loss of staff within the sector. So although those schemes have been good at being able to retain some staff, inevitably businesses have had to make staff redundant and have lost some really highly skilled and knowledgeable staff. And I think these typically fit into two sort of key areas. The one big impact is around the kind of product knowledge and understanding of the business. And I think a good example is that one of our customers was STA Travel, who many of you will be familiar with, who unfortunately went into administration at the early part of the pandemic. And those of you that ever experienced dealing with that company will know that, back in the days of being a student, you could walk into one of their shops, you could say, I've got X amount of money to spend and I want to travel around the world for 3 months. And that member of staff would know every hostel, every hotel, and put a whole itinerary together for you based on their knowledge, their experience, and probably as importantly, the fact that they visited most of those destinations as well. So how do you replace those staff? That's going to be really challenging for the business going forwards. And then the second part of that is really the kind of back office admin staff. And I think a lot of people thought that this was an area where they could downsize and lose those people that were predominantly seen as kind of staff with manual responsibilities. But, those of you, again, dealing with, for example, complex hotel contracts will know that it's one thing to be able to load a contract into a system and put it up for sale. Interpreting that contract is a completely different set of skills and knowledge. So, a highly complex hotel contract that says, if you arrive on a Wednesday with blue eyes, you get this price and you can't combine it with this price, etc., etc. That knowledge and understanding has been built up for many years from those staff. So losing those staff is going to be a real challenge to people going forward. And then moving into the kind of world of remote working, the challenges that businesses have been, around the technology. I mean, I'm always astounded by the amount of companies who contact us who are, in some cases, relatively large organisations, and you talk about their solution, their technology, and they tell you that the reservation system server is sat under the MD's desk. And working in a remote environment, how is that going to work? So people have had to address that, and then the staff morale and the efficiency of working as well. And that really leads into the kind of future uncertainty. So, fortunately, I think in many markets, the UK specifically, the peak booking period, January, February, March, although it's started slowly, it's really started to pick up now. But, that in itself has brought challenges because of people got the staff to deal with those inquiries coming in. So how many people will book in the peaks period? And that leads on to, will there be enough capacity in the market? I mean, we have customers who already for 22 have got, before even taking any bookings this year, were up to 60% full of capacity from bookings that have rolled over from, in some cases, 2 previous years into 22. Airlines have reduced their capacity, hotels have changed the way that they're working, so they're selling more direct to customers, etc. So will there be enough capacity in the market to deal with those bookings that have been rolled forward? And I think the general view is that it's likely to take at least a year to stabilise until we can get ourselves back to normality. So with all those challenges in mind, I think the pandemic has really forced businesses to review their business models and how they work. And the questions that they've been asking themselves, is what we did before still relevant? Do we need to do things that way? Can we change the way that we work? How will we manage without the same number of staff and indeed how will we manage without those skills and experience of the staff that we had before. And how can we become more efficient from an operational and a cost perspective? And if we continue working in this hybrid model, what do we need to do to support this model going forward? And these are questions that I think many businesses are having to address. Now, there are two real areas, I think, that can help with that. One is, how could you use technology to help with some of those challenges? And a good example, I think, would be sort of self-service portal for customers, where many businesses have kind of resisted that in the past because you didn't want to give customers the ability to easily go and change their booking or to cancel it. But of course, not allowing that to be done by the customer through technology means that they need to pick up the phone or send an email, and therefore you need staff to be able to deal with them, which leads back to the challenges that we talked about before. So the technology can certainly help with that, and many businesses are looking to invest in technology, or have invested to support those problems that they've got, or those challenges that they've got going forwards. And the other area that is obviously very specific to today's discussion is, how could outsourcing those resources or those services or those business functions be able to help you, and would these be able to help address some of the issues and challenges that I've listed above, and other ones that I'm sure that you're all going to have as well. So what we intend to do today is to look at, to help answer two questions, and with the help of the panel today, will be really to explain to you what is outsourcing, what services can be provided through an outsourcing type environment, and how could that help your business. And hopefully by the end of today's session, you'll have a really good overview of what Open Destinations provide as their service in this area, and whether it might be suitable for you to address some of the challenges that you've got going forwards. So to start off with, I'd like to introduce you to Manuel. So Manuel is the Business Development Director responsible for the business support services at Open Destinations. And Manuel's going to talk you through now those services, what they are, and explaining those to you in a bit more detail. So over to you, please, Manuel.
Thank you, Andy. That's a great insight into what's been happening in the market so far. So, Katrina, if you can just move to the next slide. My name's Manuel Mascarenhas. Just give you a little bit of background to Open Destinations. We've been going for about 23 years. And essentially, we're sort of a leisure travel technology and outsourcing specialist. We've got about 500 employees across our offices, both in the UK and in India, based in Goa. Our software and outsourcing services are currently in use by around 100 travel companies. 10,000 staff use them in over 35 countries. So it's pretty much a global business. Just to top line some of our products, Travel Studio is our web-based end-to-end reservations management platform. We've got Travel Builder for smaller tour operators, smaller travel businesses, and that's our out-of-the-box SaaS reservation system. And then Itinerary, you might have heard of, is our white label mobile itinerary app. The next slide, please. Goodness me, that picture was taken a while ago.
Before the lockdown beard.
I've got my lockdown beard. Yes, I've been in travel for over 40 years, having worked at British Airways for many years, some of the bigger tour operators. I then managed Wendy Wu Tours, and then introduced gardening holidays to the RHS. I've been at with Open Destinations for the last 3 years. So, why business support services and why now? As Andy has so eloquently explained, that industry has been really badly affected, mainly down to the pandemic. Customer buying habits have changed. And yes, we've had furlough, we've had all the uncertainty in the sector. And I think one key point there that Andy made is that essential skills, where we know that there are known staff shortages, have been lost to those businesses. They're the sort of people who, will want to leave. They're just numbers. They leave the business, and then all of a sudden, the company thinks, "Oh my goodness, these key skill sets, the people who know how to use our system, our in-house system, and have done so for years, are now gone. How do we deal with this situation?" But things are looking up. Businesses are, the business has picked up. Again, as Andy said, businesses are now starting to scrutinize their costs. They're reviewing their business model. They're reviewing their business models. And these critical tasks have to be replaced at some point in order to get the business to where they want to be. So how do we do that? And hopefully towards the end of this webinar, that question will be answered. Our approach to building business partnerships has evolved considerably in the last 18 months. As our partners have sought to review their business processes, they've challenged us to provide new services that are more closely aligned to their overall goals. We're no longer purely an outsourcing provider, but more so a provider of business support services. And that's why I've tended to title a lot of my slides as business support services. So again, I've said that, our approach is very much a collaborative one. We have our UK people here, a huge amount of experience within the business in travel. That is our mainstay of everything that we do. So we will ask the necessary questions. What are you trying to achieve? Can we identify the issues within existing processes and staffing? And then if there is a willingness to work with us, we will define the tasks. We look at the data types and volumes. We'll time the tasks, the timings per task. We'll look at the system's requirements. And we'll then plan work transition, staffing levels, key personnel. I have to be clear here. The process is not about replacing staff, but it's about enabling the business to focus on its priorities and enabling the business to work smarter, I guess. And that's not being critical of these businesses. It's just that we have to find a new way of working in this environment. So the next slide, please, Katrina. Thank you. So I've said that the business has evolved. The mainstay of what we've done in the past really has been product management. And that's something we're very, very good at. And we can differentiate from blue eyes and green eyes and whatever. And we're able to handle these really, really complex contracts. The contracts we get from the different hoteliers are very much the same, but when you've cracked how to load a Middle East or a Indian Ocean contract, you can do pretty much anything. So there's a huge amount of expertise there in terms of loading the contract, doing some price benchmarking, managing amendments, managing stop sales, handling promotions. And again, getting those offers out on time, the speed to market is absolutely crucial here, particularly given what Andy has just said about shortages in capacity. Understanding when things are available, getting in there and making those bookings, using the best offers that are available and utilizing that capacity is going to be fundamentally important. So finance processes, again, something that we've specialized in, that's supplier invoice reconciliation, it's accounts payable, accounts receivable, all those back office tasks. The back office support is one area which has grown considerably. How we support the customer, sometimes directly through emails, sometimes via the call centers, so a help desk, supporting resource for call center, for the call center agents, checking bookings, inventory control, investigating customer complaints and escalating those within the business. These are all back office administrative tasks that are absolutely crucial that need to be done. And this is something we've got some expertise in. Making bookings, fare auditing, managing schedule changes, recognizing when flights come into booking range, and notifying the operator. Online, we've been doing an awful lot of work. You know, it's the shop window for most businesses now, but making that an integral part of the business, making sure that it is credible. We check online integrity. And web chat is something we've taken on very recently, a growing part of a lot of travel businesses to engage with their clients. So web chat, inventory control, customer support, these are growing areas, as well as testing and quality assurance. So a lot of QA work. So the last but one slide. So the benefits. Yes, we've been around, I mean, certainly in this sector for over 17 years. We understand confidentiality, we understand GDPR, we understand the security of data, and all these things have been taken into consideration. Our back office expertise, I think, is second to none, and we've got Arif Khan, who heads up our team in Goa, who's on this web chat, and he's built a great team. The benefits, really, from our point of view, is that we've got some fantastic staff. But really, when you look at it, you know, we are systems agnostic. So probably 75% of the systems we use are not Travel Studio. So we've worked with iVector, with Dolphin, with TravelLink, Apache, Ocean, Druve, any in-house system. We've got a proven track record with the likes of Jet2, Travel Counsellors, Donata, and you'll hear from Simon at Carrier. And if anyone is uncertain about that, if you want us to refer you, you want to speak to somebody, you're welcome to do so. We'll make sure that that happens. Transparency is absolutely fundamental in the way we work. And advances in technology have really helped us in that respect. It facilitates regular communication. It gives better control to the operator of both the processes and the outcomes. The speed of setup, in 4 to 6 weeks, we can have a team up and running. And remember, that team is a dedicated team to your business. It's not a shared resource. It's a dedicated team. The focus on quality, this business wouldn't survive without the quality control that we have. And when we quote 99.8% accuracy, we mean it. Delivery on a global scale. And then, of course, the team itself is very flexible. And we've proven that fact during the pandemic, when a lot of our partners have had to come to us and say, guys, we need to be doing something else. We need to move that resource. It is your resource. And where this works well for our partners is where they treat the team in Goa as one team, as their team. They embrace them, they involve them in their decision-making, they'll challenge when they have to, they'll reward when they have to, they visit them, and it makes a huge difference. And I'm sure Simon will say something about that. It makes a massive difference if you treat them as your own. And the next slide, please. That's it. I'll now hand over to Simon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manuel. So hopefully that's given you a really good insight of the services that can be provided. Just a reminder for those who've joined after we started as well, if you've got any questions, please flash them up onto the chat function available at the bottom of your screen, and we'll ask those afterwards. Equally, if you'd like any follow-up with with any of the Open Destinations team, then please post that up and we'll organise that. So thanks, Manuel. Simon now is going to talk through his experience and Carrier's experience of using the services. So over to you, please, Simon.
Thanks very much, Andy. Thanks very much, Manuel. I better talk about those things now that you've told them I'm going to talk about them, so I'll remember to do that, don't worry. If you just flick to that first slide, thank you. I've worked with Open Destinations, not just in my current role at Carrier, where I've been for about 4.5 years now. I was previously at Travel Counsellors, which Manuel referred to as well. And it was there that I first came across Open Destinations. And it was really for the traditional product data management roles that we used them for back then. I'm not sure whether you're still working with them or not. I joined Carrier 4.5 years ago, as I mentioned, and Carrier is a very traditional tour operator. Used to be very brochure driven. We don't create brochures now. We did our best to load as much product as possible, hotel products I'm talking about here, into systems, but still retain that very, very traditional tour operator model. So it was a tour operator curating product, selling in predominantly through travel agents, a little bit of B2C. And that was the business I came into 4.5 years ago. And I inherited a product loading department within product. Or if you just flick to the next slide, please, Katrina. I inherited a system, a process that honestly was a little bit broken. Our model at Carrier isn't point and shoot. We're not an online booking system. We're not about speed. We're not about turning a booking around in 13 seconds and getting availability back in 0.6 seconds. It's not about that at all. It's a very, very bespoke business, very tailor-made. We are actually a low volume business. If we do 10 bookings to one of our hotels, to a hotel that we contract with, that's actually high volume for us. You might imagine on the flip side, in order for our business model to survive, the bookings are very high value. So why am I saying all that? The reason I'm saying that is because we've got well over 1,000 hotels contracted with us, but actually we're not doing any sort of volumes to any of them. But the business was trying to act a bit like one of Manuel's old businesses, like a TUI, trying to preload everything and preload every offer and preload every stop sale into the system on the chance that we might make a booking. When I came in, I just looked at this and thought, this is the wrong approach. We had a team of data loaders, and as I dug into it more and more, I found out that one of them had been there about 10 years, and the next longest serving member of that part of the team was about 10 weeks, because they came in, they were told they're coming into a product department. With all due respect, they found out they were loading contracts day in, day out, and it's not the most exciting of tasks. So it was almost like being missold as a step into the business, step into what is an exciting business. So I looked at this from the outside and I thought, no, this is broken. What we really need to do is focus on what we sell in volume and have the rest available to the team easily through filing systems and knowledge sharing and all the rest of it without actually loading it. And it was at that point that I thought, well, let's lose this data loading team. That wasn't difficult because we're handing their notice in every 10 weeks, as I mentioned. And rather than replace them, that's when I engaged in 2008, early 18, with Open Destinations, try and replicate a little bit of what we did at what I'd done at Travel Counsellors. Just go to the next slide. Manuel touched on some of this before, but when I engaged with Open Destinations at Carrier, once I was at Carrier, I didn't have any concerns because I knew I'd seen this system work before. I wasn't particularly concerned about the transition, but you can imagine I'd come into quite a traditional tour operating environment, which took control of everything themselves. So when I proposed this as a solution, as an improvement to our business processes, it was met with quite some concern, as you might, cynicism. And I had to sell in the idea. And I think when I was first introduced to Open Destinations, I think I needed to be sold in as well, because it was all a bit faceless. I didn't know much about it, and I was worried, I was concerned. So I'd been through this myself, and I now had to bring my own colleagues through this sort of mind process where they actually understood what it was I was proposing. And the way I did that, I explained that Open Destinations isn't a faceless third party on the other side of the world. It's actually just an extension of our own team. Instead of having Katie and John and James sitting next to us, we had people like Arif and his team. Hi Arif, good to see you here. Over in India, but they were acting as our colleagues, and that's the first thing to say really. It's important, as Manuel has said, they actually act as an extension of your own team. That's the important part. So there's got to be an ownership on both sides. The ownership from our side was to provide information in a very, very clear, coherent manner. So the guys over in India could efficiently pick up that information and load it into our system. So there's like a handoff process. What about the accuracy, Simon? You know, how are we going to do that? How are they going to be responsible for their work? Well, I looked at our error logs and I thought, if the team in India can't improve on the errors that we were producing ourselves, it wasn't worth getting out of bed for. It really wasn't. So accuracy was an easy one to actually, an easy one for me to fend off, if you like, from my colleagues. What about remote staff? How do you manage them? Well, again, having had the experience, it was about communication. It's about ensuring that they've got access to systems in a timely way at the right time of day for you to ensure they can get cracking on with their work. Ironically, 3 years later, we're all working remotely, aren't we? So actually this idea of a problem with remote staff, which was a problem in some people's heads 3 or 4 years ago, it's actually gone now. So that's probably something you won't even face these days, Manuel, when people start thinking about outsourcing some of their business processes to your team in India. The management of staff, this is about communication. It's not about management, it's about guidance, it's about leadership. And what I did at the outset was really to ensure that we had a single point of contact at Carrier liaising with the team in India. So they knew who to go to, much like a line manager or a supervisor. So it's creating those lines of communication. So this process becomes as slick as possible. And that was the way I kind of approached the concerns of my colleagues, because it was alien. The idea was alien to my colleagues at Carrier. It wasn't alien to me, but it was alien to my colleagues at Carrier. I need to overcome those concerns before we could even get the ball rolling. If you flick over to the next slide, please, Katrina. So I guess 4 years on, what do we look at? We look at the success of the relationship. The flexibility of the relationship has been shown, I guess, in the best possible way over COVID. Unfortunately, we had to lose some staff over COVID, and the Open Destinations team, unfortunately, we had to compromise there as well. We didn't have to load as many contracts in 2020 and 2021 as we would have done previously. So we had to reduce our staff numbers. It was actually very easy to reduce those staff numbers. And what's been even easier is to increase those back up again at the back end of last year, when we realized that business was on its way back. So there's a flexibility there. Is it overnight? Honestly, no. But as Manuel said, within 6 to 8 weeks, we've got people working on our account who are new to the account, who are able to actually add value. Now, previously, we were on a 6-month training program internally before we let people loose on live contracts. So 6 to 8 weeks, I'll take it. Thank you very much. It's far more efficient. Our efficiency and accuracy levels are higher. Those accuracy levels I referred to are error logs. We log all errors that come through. And yes, Open Destinations have made 1 or 2 errors, but let me tell you, not even half as many as the errors we were making ourselves when we look back at those logs. So it's human. We know that. We accept that, and we move on and we learn from it. And the way we learn is through constant communication. My colleague who looks after the account from our side has regular calls with the team, is regularly on hand to answer questions. We've got a difficult contract in, we've got an offer we've never seen before. This guy's got red eyes, not blue eyes. Is he allowed to have the offer? All that sort of thing. It's just about asking, it's just about talking to your colleagues, and that's how we treat it. So the guys in Arif's teams, they talk to my team and just talk it through. If there's a problem, they'll talk it through, much like you would over the bank, much like you would over the desk in the office. We continually monitor and log. And in fairness to Open Destinations, their own in-house monitoring and logging is probably even more efficient than our own. So they will continually send you their efficiency reports and their work reports. So in terms of monitoring and logging, I just need to make sure my contracts are getting logged within the 2 weeks that I receive it and that sort of thing. Everything else is monitored and logged by Open Destinations. And it's quite impressive, actually, the monthly report that we receive. And it does flag up any issues on the communication side, any concerns they have for the coming month. So it's a really good, like I say, two-way communication process there. I suppose the biggest single difference in our business is that every week contract loading in our trading meeting, in our weekly trading meeting, contract loading was a bone of contention, it was a problem, it was a complaint from somebody. Produced an error, or this wasn't loaded, that wasn't pulling through. I never hear about it in the trading meetings anymore. In fact, in trading meetings, we now talk about trading rather than talking about contract loading, which to me is, I guess, a testament to the success of the program and the success of the move we've made. My experience recommendations, just my final slide. I think what's really important is to get your own house in order, is to really understand the brief that you want to give somebody, you want to give Open Destinations. And the reason I say that is I've had colleagues in other departments try to outsource some of their processes that they think are very process driven, but actually a lot of the knowledge is sitting in somebody's head and it's not down in a manual, it's not down on a piece of paper to actually transfer over. So the process has failed, and that's through no fault of Open Destinations. It's because the brief isn't clear. So you've really got to get your own house in order to create a clear briefing process. You can't expect someone to go 1, 2, 8, 10 unless you're telling them to go 1, 2, 8, 10. That's the importance of the briefing process. The importance of communication, weekly, daily, is imperative, be it through Zoom, Skype, email, obviously as required. It's making sure you've got people on hand to make sure that there's no downtime, really. Any questions are getting answered straight away on both sides. So, hi Arif, have you got the contract? Can I make sure you've downloaded it properly? And then the guys who are working on the contract, hi guys, hi Simon, we've got an offer here, we've never come across it before, can you help us work through it? And it's having someone on hand to actually deal with those inquiries as they come in, deal with that communication as it comes in. The internal ownership is really important. I do refer to we when we're talking about data loading. I don't refer to they in India. This is all part of our team, and Manuel referred to that earlier on. It sounds cliche, it sounds a bit twee. It's actually really important because you don't get this blame culture then. You don't get this, they did this wrong, or or it was them over there that made the mistake. It's irrelevant. Mistake's been made, you move on. We're all one team, and that's how we deal with it internally. Ongoing training and development. I know the team, obviously, as new members come in, there's training and development going on for them, but we do try and have refresher sessions as well. It may be there's a certain type of offer, it may be a certain type of contract they need refresher training on, or they don't come across very often. So my in-house expert will often do little sessions just to keep it fresh and keep it interesting and keep them knowledgeable on the latest developments in our own system that we use. And as I said, treat Open Destinations as an extension of your own team. That's my biggest single recommendation. Treat them as though they're on the other side of your desk, like your own data loading team. To be fair, that's what they are. And that's all. That's all from me. I hope that's given you a bit of an insight. It is traditional product data management. I'm sure there are plenty of other things that actually, even if we looked at our own business, we could think of to pass over to Open Destinations to handle it as an efficient way as possible. But currently, it's just the product data management. Thanks for your time.
Lovely, thank you, Simon. That's really insightful, really useful. We're just going to finish off. Dev's going to just cover some case studies of some of the other outsourced partners, so we'll go through those quickly. Just a reminder that we've got about 10 minutes at the end for questions. So if you've got anything that you'd like to ask, please post that up on the chat, and we'll cover those questions in the last part of the session before we wrap up at the top of the hour. So over to you, please, Dev.
Brilliant. Thanks, Andy. And thanks, Simon, for giving us this sort of customer perspective. My name's Pinto. As Andy mentioned, I'm the CFO of Open Destinations, spanning our outsourcing and technology businesses. I've been involved in our outsourcing offering in Goa since we set it up over 15 years ago. And something I'm really proud of. I think it's something we do really well. And today I wanted to spend just a few minutes very briefly on some testimonials and case studies, tying that back to the subject, which is dealing with staff shortages and how potentially our service can help. What we'll do is we'll start with a couple of videos from a couple of our clients, Jet2 and Journey Latin America, some brief excerpts of presentations which they've made at a previous webinar of ours. So Katrina, you want to flick over to the slide?
Always had a great relationship with the team. Everyone, we've worked with, Dev and Manuel and Arif and the guys out in India, always been really flexible and tried to meet the demands of the business. When we've had to recruit at short notice, the recruitment's been done really, really quickly. And the quality of the people who we've had working for us has always been great. And that's something which we also have found as a challenge in the UK. It's not always easy to get the good candidates in really quickly. And that's something which we've been able to just kind of flex the resource up as we've needed.
I think that might be my last slide, Katrina, but I just wanted to say that they're solid, they're hardworking, they are flexible when we need to shift priorities or try something new. We're very much enjoying working with them, and one key recommendation I would have for anyone who's thinking of doing it is give it a try, but do make sure that you're in close contact and see them as part of your team, because they very much are, and so I think you get more out of it from that side of that approach.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks for that, Katrina. So yeah, we just here's on this slide we've got a couple examples of our customer base. I mean, we just heard from Chris Flanagan at Jet2. That's a business who we've worked with closely over a number of years and really have helped grow or helped them scale up even pre-pandemic as their business was growing, providing them with staff to meet their growth requirements, really providing them with a lot of flexibility, as Chris alluded to, helping them even during the pandemic pivot the tasks we are doing to address the challenges they faced at the time, moving away from things like contracts into dealing with refunds and rebates and really helping their business adapt to that changing environment. I think we were able to, by doing that, we built a strong relationship, and coming out of the pandemic, as their business scales up again and moves in different directions, we're now very much part of their planning process to make sure they have the staff to do what the business needs. Turning to Stuart at Journey Latin America, longtime customers of ours, actually on the technology side. He really spoke about how we were a real partnership, and the key thing there is trust. They trusted us doing important things for their business, and when things came out of the pandemic and into that sort of growth period, we were able to help them scale. We were really an extension of their business, and because of that, we were able to help them react very quickly to what was happening in the marketplace. So, in the interest of time, I'll only touch on a couple other examples here across our customer base. Companies like Best at Travel, who you see on the slide there. They're a company we've worked with for many years, initially on contracts, but expanding into things like reservations. This year, they've had a real challenge of scale up. I mean, like many travel businesses, lots of demand. They're based in central London. How to get the resources to service that demand? Well, because we have that collaboration with them for a number of years, we were able to take a lot of pain out of that process of finding staff, training them, getting them ready and useful, and contributing to the business so that they could scale up, and really, letting us focus on those activities so they could focus on their customers. A bit like Simon was saying, we don't spend time our success for us is when you don't spend time worrying about these resourcing tasks. You focus on the business, focus on the things that you need to do to be successful, particularly in this difficult environment. One other customer maybe I'll touch upon is travel counselors, a long-term client. And in fact, where we originally met with Simon, I think at the time we were doing some data, contract data entry with them. We've expanded that relationship into things like flights checking, benchmarking, and most recently into the finance sector, helping them deal with some finance challenges related to the pandemic. It's another example of dealing with a staffing challenge where we were able to provide quality resources at short notice to do a sort of business critical task. So to summarize, I think the themes we've seen from these examples we've talked through. One is flexibility, the ability to perform different tasks, and the ability to scale up quickly to meet challenges that all of our businesses are facing in the post-pandemic world. When you think about that great staff challenge, the thing is, how do you get good staff and how do you make sure they're effective? And we see our business support as part of that solution. I think partnership is something everyone has mentioned so far in the webinar. I think that's key. We want to be an extension of your business, not some cost-cutting initiative that slots in for a period of time. We really want to see ourselves as partners. And really that sort of, what everyone said and the speakers today, it kind of helps position what we do. We don't really, although it's titled as outsourcing, we actually see it more as business support, providing services which help your businesses address, the great staff shortage that our industry is experiencing today. So
thank you, Dev. That's been really useful. Great to hear the story from the customer side as well. Incidentally, those clips that Dev played were from a similar seminar we did with a couple of other case studies a few months back. That is available as well as a recording of any of you are interested in that. Then please let the Own Destinations team, and they'll be happy to send that out. So yeah, some great feedback there. We've got Arif on the call, heads up the team in Goa. So Arif, I'd be looking for a pay rise if I was you after all that praise that you've just received. So well done. Okay, good. Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes now just to cover off as many of these questions as we can. Thanks very much to those of you that have posted those up for us. So we'll go through those. Any that we can't answer, then I will get the team to follow up and contact you directly. So one of the first ones, I think it's probably one for you, Manuel, is there are many companies out there in the market that claim to provide or do provide these types of services. What do you think the differentiator is between what you're providing and what potentially either cheaper alternatives are to what you provide as well?
Yes, I mean, you're right. There are several companies out there who provide, very good outsourcing services. I suppose, I hopefully stress the point that we're more than just an off-the-shelf provision of services. Firstly, we are, we are, as I said earlier, systems agnostic. So we work with all systems, and in fact, I think the majority of the systems we work with are not of our own. We solely work in travel. That is our speciality. That's what we stick to. Dedicated teams. I think that's something that we've held firm to over the years. It's not so much about confidentiality, but it's that team feeling part of your own. And that's been stressed so many times during this webinar and the previous webinar. And for that to happen, it is important that that team is dedicated to the business. We have a UK base. There's a huge amount of experience here in the UK amongst all of us. And that also makes us very accessible, I suppose, whenever you need to talk to somebody. And then finally, it is this whole concept of a business support service. We're more than just providing a litany of things. We want to talk to you. We've got the experience and the knowledge to come and have a a proper conversation with you about your business, asking the right questions and then working with you to develop a plan on how we can support the business. So I think those are the main differentiators, Andy.
Okay, great. Thanks, Manuel. Simon, I think this one's probably best suited for you. I guess people would have found what was really interesting about your presentation is that I guess I'd describe you as a disruptor, really, of trying to look at the processes and the way the business works and how could you do things differently. Are there any other? I know Manuel covered in his presentation about some of the other services that they provide. I guess one of particular interest was around, how you might manage inquiries coming through from customers, and Manuel talked about, the teams being able to deal with chat coming in and answer questions where they don't necessarily need to do a face-to-face verbal discussion, but there could be an online chat forum that could help field some of those sorts of calls and stuff coming through. Obviously, as a high-end operator where touching the customer many times throughout their life cycle is really important to you, are there any of those sorts of services something that you think the business might consider going forwards?
Honestly, for us, I think it would always be back office, because that customer interaction is really quite tailored from our perspective. There's a very specific customer journey, way we talk to them, product knowledge, all that sort of thing. So I can't see us looking at front end systems. That said, I do believe there are probably some back end systems that we could look at that we're still doing in-house. That if we got our house in order, we could possibly do more efficiently if we took them out of house. There's also things like, I assume, and maybe I'm not the right person to answer this, but data mapping, things like that on the website, destination mapping. We all have product that is hero product, and we want to keep a hold of the control of the content for that product. But maybe our secondary and tertiary products that we're happy to sell, but we don't have as much kind of interaction with, maybe there's something there in terms of the content that we could look at. You talked about web interfaces and things like that earlier. So yeah, possibly areas like that. I can't see us looking at actual front-end customer interaction or travel agent interaction.
Okay, yeah, but maybe businesses that do, less touch with the customer, OTAs, simple changes and stuff.
Yeah,
work really well. Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Simon. Manuel, another one for you. Could you just explain how things would work with a business? So if somebody comes to you new, is there a minimum commitment that they have to have? Do they have a dedicated team? And what sort of price points are we talking about here for the services? Sorry, you're on mute, Manuel.
Certainly in terms of numbers, we believe that a team of 3 staff would best suit the business. Now, there have been times when we've run with 2 until the business is established, and then increase numbers. But we tend to look at a minimum of 3 staff. But again, it really depends on the work that's involved, on whether those staff need to have some online training, whether that single point of contact that you might have in your business, as Simon mentioned, also requires a single point of contact at within the outsourcing team. So is there a need for a supervisor or not? So again, we will listen, come and discuss it with you, and if needs be, we could run with a couple of people, but preferably 3. In terms of cost, top line, we are looking at, on average, around about sort of £900 per FTE per month. There is a sort of an ongoing monthly charge of around about £500 for a small team per month, which is a sort of a management fee, and then there's a one-off charge to set up the team, which probably equates to about 10% of the overall cost. But that's a one-off charge to get the technology, the equipment, manage the recruitment, and everything else. I don't know, Dev, if there's anything you want to add to that.
Yeah. I mean, I think again, it depends on. There's lots of variables in it. Looking at what hours and things you want the staff to work. I mean, our rate's probably around rule of thumb, £1,000 a month per person. But there's, depending on the task and what's involved, it would scale up or down. I think what we would do though is really understand initially what the task is. We do a lot of effort to model out what we think you need, the composition of the team, and make sure that we're really solving the problem that you have. Getting the right size and the right resources in place to solve that problem, and then the pricing drops out of it. But I think in principle, I think what we want to do is make sure we're giving value for money. We're not a low cost saving solution. We like to think of ourselves as being very cost effective. And I think that's what makes it valuable and makes it sort of sticky for our customers, is that it's good value for money, but you're also getting really a quality solution out of it.
Brilliant.
If I can just add one more very brief point, the fact that we are based in Goa, I think is quite significant. The teams over there, they have a very good knowledge and understanding of the English language, particularly written. And that's worth noting, because we've seen an increase in our the customer support, as I said earlier in the presentation, interpreting a customer complaint. And these were sort of concerns that were expressed to us by clients to say, well, will they understand what's being written? How will they interpret it? Well, we've had it's been a huge success story, and I think that's very much down to our recruitment, where we get these people from, but also inherent in the Goan community is the fact that they've got a good knowledge and understanding of the language.
Fantastic. Many thanks, Manuel, Dev, and Simon, for your presentations. With that, just brings us to the end of the time we've got, unfortunately. Sorry for the questions that we didn't get to cover, but we'll cover those off afterwards. I hope you found the session useful today. I hope it answered some of the questions that you may have and gave you some ideas about how these services might be able to work for your business. But thanks very much for you all joining, and I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your day.